Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska, and this is the news. A wreckage possibly of a Russian Ch-55 missile fired on December 16th of last year from a Russian plane flying over Belarusian territory was found in a forest near Bydgoszcz at the end of April. Yesterday, Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak announced the resignation of General Tomasz Piotrowski in connection with the incident. The National Security Bureau sees no such need, and the general responds to the minister with an appeal for approval.
Ustalenia kontroli jasno wskazują,
According to the audit's findings, the operational commander neglected his instructional duties by failing to inform me of an object that had appeared in Polish airspace, or to inform the Government Security Center and other services provided for in the procedures. The Operational Command's December 16th operational report, which I received, stated that there was no violation or trespassing of Poland's airspace on December 16th, which, as it later turned out, was untrue. At the same time, the findings of the audit clearly demonstrated the failure of the operational commander to take sufficient action in searching for the object. I am speaking to you because I wanted to make an appeal for common sense. For us to weigh our emotions very heavily in the coming days, for us to be reasonable in what we do, for a very ambitious and aggressive opponent not to give nourishment, not to allow ourselves to be divided into groups, because the opponent is only waiting for that. I appeal to you so that we are strong in consolidation, so that we support each other, so that there are never again situations that harm us, but help the opponent. If it was indeed the Ch-55, in English, Kh-55 missile, we're talking about a very specialized long-range maneuvering missile, which was developed back in the Soviet era, and whose main task was to carry and attack ground targets using a nuclear warhead. The Russians, who were somehow reducing the number of nuclear warheads, took some of the Kh-55 missiles out of service and preserved them over the years. And just now they are being used not as a means of combat to destroy ground targets, but as such a flying decoy, an apparent target for Ukraine's anti-aircraft defenses, where the fired missiles are meant to simulate another wave of cruise missiles.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with Brazil President's special foreign policy advisor, Celso Amorim, on Thursday in Kiev. During the meeting, Zelensky insisted that the Ukrainian plan for peace is the only one capable of stopping the war with Russia. Meanwhile, Ukrainian military forensic experts are examining a Russian hypersonic missile shot down for the first time by the Patriot defense system.
Amorim arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday, May 9th, for talks with President Zelensky as part of the Brazilian government's efforts to have peace talks mediated by a group of countries not directly involved in the conflict. The former foreign minister Amorim had already met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow in April, where he said that the doors are open to negotiate an end to the war that began in February last year. The president of Brazil, Lula, condemned the territorial occupation promoted by Russia, but has also insisted on a negotiated solution to the conflict and advocated that Western countries stop supplying arms to Ukraine. This week, I met the president of Brazil's foreign policy special advisor. We discussed the possibility of conducting a Ukraine-Latin America summit. Once again, I emphasized my offer for the Brazilian president to visit our country and witness Ukrainian heroism for his own eyes, our determination to bring peace to our Ukrainian land, and all our cities and towns that are suffering from Russian terrorist attacks. Our peace formula, which Ukraine presented to the world last year, has now become even more urgent. It's the only intricate and realistic plan to bring back peace, not only to our people, but all the people of this planet that want to lead a life without aggression. Meanwhile, a Russian hypersonic missile that the Patriot defense system successfully shot down for the first time is currently being examined by Ukrainian military forensic specialists. The Kinjal, which means dagger in Russian, shot down by the Ukrainian Air Force during an attack on the capital Kyiv last week, is one of 6 next-generation weapons unveiled by President Vladimir Putin in 2018, when the Russian leader boasted that it cannot be shot down by any of the world's air defense systems. This is Octagon, a highly potent explosive. It is a good explosive, a cool one. It is used in all modern weapons. It is very powerful. The TNT equivalent would be somewhat around 240 kilograms. It can cause a powerful explosion. Thanks to the work of the air defense, the explosion never happened. We have received information that it was the so-called Kinjal, that the Russians say no weapon can shoot down. But we can see here at the Military Forensic Institute, where the experts have determined the fragments are those of the same hypersonic missile that the Russians present as a miracle weapon, impossible to down. This makes us happy because we feel safer, and we thank our partners for their support, because safety is the most important thing for all Ukrainians. Ukrainian Air Force Commander Mykola Oleshuk said the Kh-47 Kinjal had been shot down on Thursday night over the region outside Kyiv. The Air Force said it had been taken down by a U.S. Patriot air defense system. The U.S. Patriot system is one of an array of sophisticated air defense units supplied by the West to help Ukraine repel a months-long Russian campaign of airstrikes that has targeted critical infrastructure, power facilities, and other sites. Hundreds of civilians have been killed in the attacks that Russia stepped up in October, ahead of winter. The strikes failed to cripple the power grid, but caused sweeping power cuts and other outages. Russia denies targeting civilians. The air-launched ballistic missile, which can reach speeds of up to 12,350 kilometers per hour, is capable of carrying nuclear or conventional warheads. It has a reported range of 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. U.S. Patriot missiles were only delivered to Ukraine last month, officials said.
Earlier today, European Union foreign ministers arrived in Stockholm to discuss plans to recalibrate the bloc's China policy, aiming to reduce the risks of economic dependency on Beijing while continuing to cooperate on global issues.
The European External Action Service presented the proposal in a 7-page document sent to EU governments ahead of the meeting in Stockholm. The document is the EU's latest attempt to strike a balance between the views of its 27 member countries and a desire to keep a distinctive EU approach to Beijing, while also preserving a close partnership with the United States. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said there were at least 3 reasons for recalibrating China policy.
We will prepare the discussion of the leaders at the European Union Council by the end of June. And on this paper, we recalibrate our position towards China from the 3 points of view. China being a partner, it is a partner. We exchange with China 2.7 billion euros a day, so forget about decoupling. China is a competitor, certainly. Its economic growth, its technological capacity, is a competitor. We have other competitors, not only China, but China is an important competitor, not only a supplier of cheap goods. And third, our systems, our political and economic systems are different, completely different. We are a multi-party democracy. They are a single party. We are a market economy. The Chinese economy is being driven by the state. So we are very different. And in the world, we are rivals because we present our models to the rest of the world. But we have to engage with China. I think the key word is engaging and reducing dependencies.
I don't want to get into any specific measures at this point because right now we are talking, we are willing to keep very good relations with China, with many other partners that are also very important in the Indo-Pacific region. What is very important is to declare unequivocally that any attempt at the destabilizing situation would be met with European answer, European and transatlantic answer. This is very important to keep it. I think we can draw some conclusions from our approach to Russia. If we would have been more decisive before, let's say, 2021, if the approach, the willingness to be stronger would be then better coordinated, if this voice of Europe would be more visible and less equivocal, then perhaps Russia would have been deterred. We know that many errors have been made when it comes to EU-Russia policy in the past. We shouldn't repeat these errors vis-à-vis any other major partners.
In terms of how the European Union can de-risk when it comes to economic dependency on China, the document suggests screening investments more closely and more robust export controls. It also says the European Union should diversify sources of supply in key sectors, in particular those crucial to our green and digital transition, such as semiconductors, 5G and 6G telecoms batteries, raw materials, and critical minerals. Arriving for the meeting, Lithuania's foreign minister said the EU needed to be prepared for the fallout from a potential deterioration in relations with China, such as might happen if conflict were to erupt over Taiwan. Leaders such as European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have called for a de-risking, but not a decoupling from China. French President Emmanuel Macron, however, recently provoked a backlash when he called on the EU to reduce dependency on the U.S. and cautioned against being drawn into a crisis over Taiwan, driven by an American rhythm and a Chinese overreaction.
A Chinese special representative of Eurasian affairs will visit Ukraine, Poland, France, Germany, and Russia from May 15th to promote peace talks, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said earlier today.
Special Representative of the Chinese government for Eurasian Affairs, Li Hui, will visit Ukraine, Poland, France, Germany, and Russia from May 15th to communicate with all parties on a political solution to the Ukraine crisis. The visit by a Chinese representative to relevant countries is another manifestation of China's commitment to promote peace talks. It fully demonstrates that China firmly stands on the side of peace. Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke to Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky by phone last month, saying that China would send special representatives to Ukraine and hold talks with all parties seeking peace. China will focus on promoting peace talks and make efforts for a ceasefire as soon as possible, President Xi Jinping told President Zelensky, according to the Chinese state media reports.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful weekend.